to the Leadership for Nonprofit Organizations video lecture. I'm Dr. Alicia Brannon-Little, and I will be covering Chapter 5, Executive Leadership. This chapter begins with talking about the responsibilities of the CEO, which is a Chief Executive Officer. Depending on the organization, they're going to have a wide range of responsibilities, and they're going to be different from organization to organization. A nonprofit CEO has 10 basic responsibilities that are identified by Richard Moyers. The first is commitment to the mission. And of course, as you know, anytime you are part of anything, if you have an established mission, then you have to gain commitment from everyone to work toward that particular goal. The second is to lead the staff and manage the organization. Then exercise responsibility of financial stewardship. This is where there are some issues that arise with finances within the organization. And there are certain actual laws, legal responsibility that needs to take place so that you are exercising that financial stewardship so that the organization can run in a manner that is sustainable and within those legal ramifications. Also, a nonprofit CEO needs to lead and manage fundraising. That is a big part of a nonprofit organization, is raising funds. So it's important to have the right person in that position to be able to accomplish that goal. They also need to follow the highest ethical standards, ensure accountability, and comply with the law. They need to engage with the board in planning and leading when they're doing implementing and different things that are their responsibility. They need to develop future leadership. So not just when their time is up, they decide just to take off, but they need to develop those that are under them to be able to make those decisions and move to a leadership type position. They need to build external relationships and serve as an advocate. And also ensure the quality and effectiveness of the programs that they offer and support the board. So those are the responsibilities of a nonprofit CEO. CEO's responsibilities involve both managing and leading. And then they also need to share most of their responsibilities with the governing board. So what is management? Management focuses on day-to-day activities. So those daily operations. And if you recall from chapter 1, that managers focus on doing things right. Then there's leadership. Leadership focuses on doing the right things. So they have to focus on their purpose, the vision, and the direction of the organization. Some will argue that having a leadership and a management role, or just those two positions, require different personal skills, or that skills rarely are found in the same person. So what that means is what this is saying is you may not find a person who is actually a leader and a manager, or that would be difficult to find. But there are other times that one person will have the responsibility for leading the organization as well as managing the organization. Generally, it seems like it's two separate positions. CEOs can delegate to management and to others, but leadership cannot be delegated. Both leaders and managers are needed within an organization. And the manager or the leadership cannot be delegated. That's what you have to remember. So although they both can be they both are needed within an organization, the lack of leadership can lead to an organization's failure. There are several different leadership theories that the text refers to, but there's no one right theory for every situation at all times. There is the trait theories, which means that refers to how leadership reflects the individual's personality. So since it's difficult For individuals to change their intelligence or their personalities, trait theories imply that leaders are born and not made. And that makes me think of the question, are you a born leader? Some people are just born to lead. But this particular theory that says leaders are born and not made. Skills theory suggests that leaders possess skills in 3 different areas. So they have to have technical skills, knowledge about the job, the profession, whatever the tasks are that they have to make sure is carried out. Then they have to have human abilities to work with other people. So they have to be a type of person that can, whether or not you like somebody, you should be able to work with them. Through my years of experience in working, there are people that I probably wouldn't invite over to my house, but I can work and get the job done and be very cordial. So it's not about liking everyone as much as it is about making sure that you're able to accomplish your position in, an effective manner that is, and I don't mean you don't have to like them as in being rude to them and still accomplishing your goal. I mean working together and being cordial toward one another and moving toward those goals. Also, they need to be conceptual, the ability to understand ideas and principles. There are different leadership styles. The Ohio State University identified 2 types of leadership behaviors. The first one is task behavior, which is actions that relate to the work that has to be completed. And the other one is relationship behaviors. This is action that is focused on the feelings of the subordinates. The University of Michigan identified some of the same categories, but labeled them production-oriented and employees-oriented. There's also situational theories where different styles might be more appropriate in different situations. Contingency theories are different situations might call for different combinations of task-oriented and relationship-oriented behaviors. Under the contingency theory, it's going to depend on 3 different variables: the leader-member relationships, the task structure, and the position of power of the leader. There's also servant leadership, which in many nonprofit organizations, they're generally viewed as more of servanthood or servantship, if you will. So it begins with the leader's values and commitments, and that moral leaders are more concerned with serving others than they are with meeting their own self-interest. So servant leaders exhibit honesty, integrity, character, and spirit. They listen, empathize with others, and focus on relationships, which is something as Christians we should be doing each and every day. We are here to serve and to carry out God's mission. There is path goal theories. This is how leaders can adapt their behaviors to motivate their followers. There is leader-member exchange theory, which views leadership in terms of interactions between leaders and followers. There's the transactional leadership, which is an exchange process in which rewards or punishments are exchanged by the leader for behavior of others. And one example is if you go to work and you're there on time, then you're going to get paid. If you don't show up to work or you come in half a day or something, then you're not likely to get paid if you don't show up, or you're not going to make the money that you should have earned if you would have come to work on time. So again, and if you miss work too often, then you understand that you will be fired. Transformational leadership, which is my favorite leadership, is leadership that changes people. So transformational leadership inspires and enhances people to grow, be morally responsible in terms of their levels of motivation, And it also empowers individuals to go beyond their self-interest and to pursue goals that are in common interest. There's also executive leadership, which is, of course, as it sounds, it exists when the leader that has the power to make simple decisions. And then there's legislative leadership. This is the styles that rely more on persuasion, political currency, or shared interests to create the conditions for the right decisions to happen. And there's charismatic leadership, which includes certain behaviors. The leader advocates a vision that is different from the status quo, things that are just being done as usual, but still acceptable to the followers. So they act in unconventional ways, they engage in self-sacrifice and risk-taking, they display confidence, they use visioning and persuasive appeal to influence their followers, and they locate opportunities for novel strategies. So now I want to discuss literature on nonprofit executive leadership. It tells more about how to lead and much less about how leaders actually go about their business. Many studies based on some surveys that were conducted in your textbook are about perceptions, describe the qualities of the individual, the openness and honesty of that person as the most important quality. Another study that was conducted talked about the passion and commitment, the vision, integrity, trust, and credibility as most important. So you can see where this kind of falls back on, someone's ethical standards and their integrity. Skills associated with effective nonprofit leadership include interpersonal skills, communication, delegation, management staff, the ability to articulate and write messages, and the ability to raise funds. Effective nonprofit leaders are those who are not excessively focused on internal management and not obsessed with policies and procedures. Instead, they delegate. Effective leaders foster diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is what we talked about in Chapter 4. Nanas and Dobbs suggest 4 quadrants in which a CEO should focus and operate at any given time. And that is inside the organization, outside the organization, on present operations, and then on future possibilities. Next, we're going to look at the concept of frames. So a frame is a perspective or a way of seeing and understanding things. Boldman and Deal identified 4 frames that leaders can use. The first is structural frame. This focuses on structure and formal relationships. The second is human resources frames, which is on interpersonal relationships and worker morale. The third one is symbolic frame, where events, rituals, stories, and all these things are central to the work that they are performing. And the last is a political frame, which is one that distinguishes effectiveness of CEOs from others. So leaders using this frame will be sensitive to external forces, and they're going to devote their time and effort to maintaining relationships and influencing various competing constituencies. Nonprofit executive effectiveness results from having the right person in the right job at the right time. And we know that you need the right people in the right positions. But sometimes that doesn't always take place because we owe someone a favor, or we have a good friend that needs a job. And so we try to see if things will work out. But it really is about having the right person in that particular job that is best for them, or they're not going to be able to perform according to the organization's expectations. There is an alignment map that encompasses the characteristics of an individual, their organization and community, or the market of the organization that it serves. All three of these areas, the individual, the organization, commitment, and the market, must be aligned to produce a perfect fit. So, for example, a charismatic leader with an extroverted personality might be a good fit for an advocacy organization that is working to gain public awareness and change public policy. But this type of individual may not be a good fit as a director over a museum or a university or something else where they are required to perform things and participate in a different capacity. You can also read about the alignment two-way process in the textbook. There are times when an organization needs a different kind of a leader, and one leadership style may be appropriate at one point within the organization's process or their history, but another leadership or leadership type may be appropriate at a different time within the organization. Then there are situations when the founder's philosophical identification with the organization may make it impossible for him or her to accept a more democratic or team approach. So their psychological and really their physiological, their philosophy may be good at one point to drive the organization, but then at a later time, it may be more appropriate to implement something different. The board may begin to add more outsiders, people who are not personally selected by the founder, are these people that the board may decide to bring in and who might bring more professional skills. The outsiders may have less loyalty to the founder, but they may be able to begin to shift what is taking place within the organization, which also will increase the tension between the founder and the executive board. So this is known as a founder syndrome. The founder syndrome is, I know a person who has this actually currently. They have built up this organization and they're more focused on how they are trying to accomplish things rather than to listen to ideas or to bring in people that may be able to help in a different capacity or take over some of those responsibilities, because the founder is so passionate about beginning what they've started, but they're still doing things in the way that they perceive that things should be done. So it makes it a little bit challenging in order to grow in other areas within that organization. The textbook provides examples of successful transitions and offers specific recommendations. So what the list of these items is first, it's a limit the founder's role. So limiting the founder's role to specific areas. That may be a little more challenging than what it seems, but to begin to cut back on what the founder is responsible for. And then engage in regular coaching. They have to anticipate conflict, transition board, founder, and staff loyalty, and then create initial separation to allow the successor to settle in, particularly if the founder's new role is substantial or even long-term. There should be an executive transition and succession plan in place. So because baby boomers who have risen through the ranks in many different sectors, they are reaching retirement age, and there will be a significant turnover in CEO positions. So baby boomers are those that are born back, I believe the age range is like from 1946 or so up until about 1962, 63 area. all of those individuals that are in the workforce are beginning to retire. And because they are retiring, then you have the significant turnover rate in positions within the workforce. When the time does arrive to appoint a new CEO, then the most of these positions are recruited from outside of the organization. And sometimes the board does this in order to bring in new ideas from individuals that are not already accustomed to everything that is going on within the organization. The last thing that I'm going to go into is, first, there is failure in transformational change can create problems within the organization. It does happen sometimes because leaders allow too much complacency. They do not engender a sufficient sense of urgency about the need for change. Cotter offers an 8-step change process that avoids some potential mistakes. So the first step is to establish a sense of urgency, then create a guiding coalition, develop a vision and strategy, communicate the change vision, empower board-based action, generate short-term wins, consolidate gains, and produce more change. And the last one is to anchor new approaches in the culture. The essential ingredient of success, or maybe having a successful change, requires 70 to 90% of leadership and just 10 to 30% of skills from the management. So that is going to conclude executive leadership, which is our Chapter 5 discussion. Remember, if you need to contact me, to do so via email so that I can reply within 24 hours or less. Have a great week.